gets advertised, but it's something that I feel extremely passionate about, and I'm real excited to share this with you. This is a talk that I was asked to give at the PRISM conference coming up in Alaska. It's kind of a dry run of that. It's largely baked, not fully baked, so I'd love any feedback that you all can give. I started in this industry, actually I came up in a large family business, $50 million, 150 employees, scrap metal recycling concern. So it's a heavy industrial background. And I was actually purchasing ships from the U.S. government and cutting them up for metal scrap in my 20s. So I challenge you to find another records manager with that background. And it certainly didn't prepare me for this, but I can guarantee you after working with fellows who didn't speak a lot of English, deciding whether to cut into a pipe that made hell jet fuel with EPA and my local regulators standing present, looking at a big warehouse with cartons that don't speak back was one of the most thrilling moments of my life. Now it's kind of back. I started my company FileVault in Charlotte, North Carolina on 9/9/01, and it was really, I'm one of the few people, I don't know how many folks in the industry, I've been on the board of PRISM, which is the record center side of the show. I don't know how many people were that foolish to get into this business, totally greenfield. I had just anecdotally heard that Pierce Lady had recently been bought out by Iron Mountain, and this would be Charlotte, North Carolina's a booming town, and you know what, it would be a great place to have a business like this. I like the business model, and had no clue for the capital that it would take to operate a successful record center. And now we just had our 6th birthday. We're strongly cash flowing. Contrary to what Jim Johnson said, though, and this is really the purpose of my talk, I actually do nothing related to my business. My business grows very strongly every year. I spend all my days in Panera or Starbucks or at home with my kids, and add terrific value both to my company and my clients by doing that. And that may be hard to believe, and I'm about to tell you now, because I'm a fanatic believer in this kind of management approach. And it's something I was taught. I had to be taught, and I've been really working hard at it since I started our company with 1.5 other people, 10-hour delivery guy and a woman inside, and I was out knocking on doors explaining why I'm smarter and better than I'm accountant and why you should give me 20,000 cartons. So this is what this is about. I wonder how many of you hate how you spend your time, or hate even a little bit how you spend your time. Do you spend your time putting out fires, answering an email that is a nuisance to you, or doing activities, any activities, which you are not meant to do? Do you even know what you're meant to do? I say it all deadly serious. It's deeply, makes me deeply sad. And I should say I'm an entrepreneur with a specialty in records management. That's who I am, it's my essence. I'm an entrepreneur first with a specialty in records management. I have worked with, continue to meet, and be friends with people who really do not know what they're supposed to be doing with their life, with their time specifically. Now, even if you do know the answer to that, does everybody on your team know the answer to that? Everybody that works for you. If I went up to the driver in your operation, does he know what he's supposed to be doing, what he's put on earth to do? In America, our entrepreneurial ethic is really suggests that we roll up our sleeves and kill ourselves and attempt to do it all. We'll do whatever it takes to keep the business going in the right direction. Even if we've done a good job hiring good people, we still feel the need to control everything, for better or for worse. And I really mean that, for better or for worse. I'm in an entrepreneurial peer group, and the guys in my group whom I love, are the typical entrepreneur, highly complexity will always arise for you as you grow your enterprise. And this is not just for entrepreneurs, obviously it's for managers in any organization, and frankly it's for self-management as well. As you grow, as you succeed, as you accomplish goals, ceilings and complex, life gets more complicated. The world's getting wildly more efficient at throwing things at us. I'm an avid reader and sucker in inputs, and life just becomes extraordinarily challenging. I'm an RSSP fanatic, for those of you who know it, but it just takes a tremendous amount of organization and discipline to handle what comes at you in life. So the extent to which we are successful in breaking through these ceilings of complexity is the only criterion for whether or not we will be able to, first of all, be happy, grow our enterprises, and be satisfied with our lives. Even if we manage to get to a state of normal for a while, these ceilings of complexity will continue to come at us. It's like we're on a high-level treadmill, where there may be excitement running our own show, but we're not thrilled, we're not actually tremendously excited to be doing everything that we do every moment of the day. The thesis of this talk is that we can do. I am here to tell you that I am. And there's an alternative that many of us choose to follow as we build our enterprise. Many people would say that the first 6 years of starting an enterprise, whatever it is, they are like sliding down a razor blade into alcohol. For me, they've been the best years of my life. It's been the healthiest kind of stresses and rewards. I'm not saying it hasn't been setback after setback. But this vision really has the CEO in a relaxed, kind of highly productive state almost all the time. She enjoys almost every activity she engages in, and her team feels the same way. There are almost never fires to be addressed, and everyone, CEO included, works routine hours. Clients are thrilled with the results, and the team loves their work, and you, or the CEO, are performing at a very high level with minimum stress. So the punchline is that a relentless focus on people's gifts can pay big dividends. The alternative is, this is a different model. It's one where you determine your own gifts and those of everyone on your team. It's not a mystery. This is a soft philosophical talk, but there are very hard ways to do this. And what do you do that adds the most value? And that is what I mean by gift. I'm using a lot of terms interchangeably here: strengths, unique abilities, and gifts, but I'll define them in a minute. Now, this is a very straightforward thing to figure out what you're great at and what those who work with you are great at. It's very straightforward, but it's surprisingly few teams do it. I didn't do it for the first couple of years. Came up in the middle with 250 guys, punching the clock everything. But I'm going to describe how your team, your company, and you yourself will benefit immensely from this approach. This strengths focus helps your team, first of all, and that'll be the first part of what I'll talk about, individually, as people. It's going to help your company, and it's most importantly going to help you. So I use the word strengths, unique ability, and gifts interchangeably. What I mean is the same. A person's strengths are something you've been doing your entire life. It's not something that you're taught. They give you energy when you use these gifts. They give those around you energy when you use these gifts. You do it so much that you may take it for granted, or even not even consider it a strength. In my case, that was the case. You employ them better than anybody else on the planet Earth. And in the case of an entrepreneur, you actually get people to pay you to use them. Now, everybody has a unique ability, and you create terrific value when you use it. When I say everybody, I mean everybody. The person who empties the trash in our office has a unique ability, gets value in her life by emptying the trash. So make no mistake, everybody has something to offer that they are gifted at, better at than you are. So, first we'll talk about why strengths focus helps individuals on the team, or how they do it. So first of all, figure out what the strengths are in the first place. And you do this by a number of ways. It's not a magic process. There's no kind of divination involved. You do it by thought, by discussing, and by inexpensive assessments that are readily available, and I'll talk about some at the end of this talk. One simple way that a lot of folks find interesting is to write a letter to 10 people who've known you your whole life and ask them, what do you think my unique gifts are? This was a stunning thing for me when this happened, because 10 people who didn't know each other came back and they used the same vocabulary words in these letters, and they were trained. It was extremely helpful for me to think about myself in a way that honestly I wouldn't, and these words were not ones that I would have ever used to describe myself. Now, this process involves learning about a number of ways to describe yourself and honing them down to a description. So you're getting all these vocabulary words and inputs from lots of people, and effectively it can be a mission statement about yourself, but it's honing it down to a description of what you're great at, bottom line. For example, you may be fabulous with numbers, and there's someone whose unique gift in the world, they are terrible with people. They cannot communicate, but their unique gift is to take any random stack of spreadsheets that 3 inches thick and turn them into a public company. That's how gifted they are with creating value from numbers. There's some people who are exact opposite, right? Where you're terrific with people, but don't show me any rewards. You may love using your hands in your work. The folks in our record center are terrific, get terrific value in their life by working with their hands. These are guys who actually don't get enough time to do it on the job, and so on the weekends they build things for themselves. They're extremely handy. But whatever it is, you probably do it all the time, but don't put a high enough value on it. Data here is as important as it is in every place else in an enterprise. I'll tell you the story of Joan, age 57, because this had a huge impact on me. Through a series of circumstances, we ended up hiring this woman to help build a little scanning operation for us. And Joan kind of ran the shop. But she got into our organization. She kind of sneaked in a way that we didn't do a lot of what I'm talking about, which, make no mistake, what I'm talking about has come through a lot of trial and error over the years. I'm sitting with Joan after I get her assessments back and said, Joan, it shows so clearly here that you, Joan, age 57, are meant on this planet to be a salesperson. These are your gifts. You love people. You're forceful. You're a believer. Yet you're about to spend your entire day in a room with nobody else, with a big stack of paper, and running through a machine. And on the other end, it's going to come out. That's what you're going to do tomorrow and the next day. And as I'm talking to her, she's shaking her head and smiling. I said, why are you laughing? She said, you know, Dan, people can tell me that my whole life. I should be in sales. Now, I went home. I'm driving home. It's very impactful for me. I'm thinking, this one, I really respect her. She's terrific. Everybody loved her. But how can you go through life and be like the cat whose hair is rubbed the wrong way, and not be, and so many people, how many of us I used to know attorneys, or that's one of them, typically people pick on that, you know, aren't too satisfied. Now, the other way that you kind of hone in on what some of my strengths are is by focusing on areas that evoke emotion as often as possible. And there's a tool, I'll just mention, called, we call it DOS, D-O-S, Dangers, Opportunities, and Strengths. And by keeping these dangers, opportunities, and strengths at the forefront of almost every relationship that we engage in, that I personally engage in one-on-one, that I engage in with my team, my spouse, my prospects, my clients, it keeps it at an extremely high level. You can't BS when you talk about things that are causing people anxiety, that are dangerous, things that are causing people excitement, like opportunities, and things that give people confidence, like their own strengths. And so we have kind of institutionalized it in FileVault, where when I'm about to sign with you, and I should say I haven't been involved in sales in about 40 months, contrary, up to 72 months we've been in business. Last 40, I had a contrary with Johnson Sedgwick too. So, but our sales folks will actually have this conversation with you upon signing and end it with the question, if we're having this conversation in 36 months or at the end of this contract, whatever it is, what would have happened for you to feel happy with your progress? It's a very powerful way to begin a relationship. So we try to keep it real. Now, another way we keep focused on what people are all about, it doesn't mean we sugarcoat reality. It's not a bunch of Pollyannas at our firm. But one of the most powerful assessments that we do, and these are routine, and I'll talk somebody's frustrations, they just inventory them. And for each one they list, they talk about what would be the ideal state. How would you really like to see it? And then we have an adult-to-adult conversation about what are the actions that it would take to go from this frustrating situation to the ideal state. This is not magic, and I'm not a psychologist, but it has created some terrific conversations. And then we routinely focus on achievements of whatever scale and relate them to a next action that somebody can take to move things forward. So I have a daily huddle every morning at 8 o'clock with my management team. And it's routine in that call to hear that, we got a call from client. Alex, their coder, did a terrific job yesterday. Well, my personal highest priority on the day is to make sure I communicate with Alex how fantastic that is for the company and for the rest of the team, why that sets us apart from the next guy. So these assessments that I kind of briefly touch on, I'll try to get back to at the end. Personality assessments, the 10 questions, I don't think I mentioned that Marcus Buckingham's work on Discover Your Strengths. Gallup has identified 10 questions statistically that tell you whether a person's happy on the job, like, do you know what's expected of you, do you have the tools to do your work, has your boss complimented your performance in the past week? The one we're really proud of is, do your coworkers want to do quality work? And for the first time ever in the past couple of years, all my team rates that as highly as possible, which, if you think about what that means, its implications are pretty powerful. The DOS conversations, the frustrations, breakthrough, the positive focus, these provide raw material to help people stay focused on what they're gifted at. Now, by keeping this focus, and again, we're still talking about your team and why it helps people individually. Once you determine what these strengths are and you cleave to them, you only do them to the exclusion of anything else. And this is kind of a punchline for me. You make sure your team, to the extent humanly possible, only works within their strengths. Invest what it takes, and I recognize what I'm saying as a bootstrap entrepreneur, invest whatever it takes that you only do them to the exclusion of everything else, everything to people who are gifted at those things. And I'm talking about everything. So what do I mean by, get rid of the time wasters, the things that they're inefficient at, or even merely competent at, and yes, even things that they're excellent at, but not gifted at. So what do I mean by time wasters? Training on technicalities. If a guy loves his job, he's going to figure out how to optimize his own performance without you telling him. Example after example of the librarians who figure out shortcuts in those tape libraries, or drivers who have tips or hints, etc. It's going to reduce turnover. And how much time does turnover waste for you? By doing this, your turnover will drop to zero. I mean zero. Actually, I have to modify this. So recently we lost a star driver to one of our clients. And so that's a danger when you have 8 players who love what they do. And I should have started by saying our team is 100% 8 players work for my company. It took about 4 years to get to that place. I started with C players who I could afford in the $8 to $12 an hour range, and then methodically turned it to where we are now, where we're all 8 players. So here's an explicit example of what I'm talking about. For me, when I started, I was doing payroll. That, to me, is my personal wrist-slitting type of activity, okay? So I was incompetent at it, and it caused me stress, immense stress. The minute that I had free cash flow in my enterprise, I had 2 choices. I could put it in my pocket, which I and those who depend on me were salivating about, or I could invest the $30 a week in somebody else who, in this example, actually wasn't gifted on it, but was less crappy at it than I was. And that would enable me at that time to spend 2 more hours doing whatever it was that I create value. That's an easy example. If you make a list of all the things that you do in the course of a month in which you're incompetent and cause you stress, and eliminate those things, how much value will that create? How much happiness will it create for you and value will it create for your enterprise? Then you eliminate the things that you're really competent at, but to which you add no value. In my case, it's setting appointments for myself. It's something that sounds bizarre, it may be a quirk of mine, but I hate, rather than trying to chase a busy guy like John Stevens, and I have to talk to him, but I might not get you. He's not a good example because he's so anal about answering his phone. But other people don't. We all know that. I would rather ask somebody, please call X. And they control my calendar. So I've outsourced the control of my calendar somebody. For me, I've got an immense lift, like I guess all doctors do, since they're creating value by turning their wrench in their own way. They have other people deal with their appointments. Now here's what I think may be interesting to you all. You also outsource everything that you're excellent at, but you're not gifted at. So in my case, that was sales. I was starting a company. You don't have money for a salesperson. You got to go to work. I was cradling a months old and hungry and focused, I can assure you. So I was out there. But after about 20, 24 months of doing it and being excellent, I really was at the stage, if I got in front of you, I would close you. I just thought, I'm not excited anymore about this, and I'm not creating maximum value for my company. Get into that in a while. So I actually gave up equity in my enterprise to somebody. That's how strongly I believe in this philosophy, to somebody who would sell for me. And, so to this day, there's money that could be going into my pocket, but it's not. And so that time that I'm sitting, thinking great thoughts could be translated, but my point where I'm going is those great thoughts really translate into tangible economic value for my enterprise. That's where the rubber meets the road. So, ways to do this. You can set the tone for your focus on folks' gifts from day one in your organization, actually before they get there, setting them the schedule of what's going to go on their first day, their first week, their first month, their first quarter. And you get feedback at each milestone. In this way, you're touching base constantly. Are you exploiting your gifts? Now, in undergraduate programs in the States, for all you Aussies, and I assume it's everywhere, they dole out what they call honors in programs, magna cum laude, that kind of thing, to students in different ways. And at some schools, they average your performance in all your activities, and they dole out honors based on the average number. Where I went, I discovered late in the game that actually all my school cared about was how I performed in my major. That is, the subject areas that I loved. I just thought that was a brilliant way to incent somebody to experiment, to take the subjects that I was uncomfortable with, in that case like music, and I was a much better liberal arts student overall because of how they measured me, which is how I did at what I loved. So for this reason, D in Latin and C- in biology didn't serve as lead balloons that they might have otherwise. But it's the same exact principle in business. So by having the team work in areas that they're strong in, like an anal librarian who gets immense pleasure from self-management and autonomy, or strong follow-through but low creativity being an entry person, whatever it is, and grading them routinely, in our case quarterly, on metrics that they should be acing because they love what they do, then you set up everybody for success. And you get outstanding contributions where it matters and beautiful side effects, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. Now, I said that unique ability focus allows you to waste less time and have more fun. And I guarantee you that when folks work within their strengths or unique ability, they'll have so much fun and take wild horses to pull them away. Our lead CSR is a drummer. He keeps drumsticks on his desk. He plays during the day. Now, he also happens to be one of the most anal process people in the world, the kind of person who will sweat if the pencil is not oriented parallel to the edge of the desk. Okay? Probably why he's a good drummer, I don't know. But, now, I know from my assessments of him that he believes in the vital importance of the job he does for our clients. He's been doing this for 20 years. The average age of our team is 40 with 20 years of experience in records management. Now, in his case, translating unclear retrieval requests into specific ones that's really his job. That is, he knows more about our clients' records than they do. Now, we don't have him do things that he sucks at, or even deal with folks who suck. So, for example, such an A player is he that in reviews, when it comes up that C player employee is causing him more work because of his inattention to the job, up on Dan Peck's priority list is get rid of C player employee pronto. And that kind of decision and the best business decisions are made to clear the players to kick butt. Now, what do you think the effects are of having a drumming, highly competent CSR who loves the profession and is not bothered by low performers during the day? All I can say is that we routinely get unsolicited phone calls about what a positive face this guy is on our team. This is the heart of the matter of how strengths make a team great. Merely by starting off on the right foot, by aiming folks properly, is not enough. If you kind of routinely review what's working, what's not working, what are frustrations, dangers, opportunities, strengths, and set appropriate objectives, you'll inspire confidence that all will remain well. So we look quarterly. Now this is I think why they wanted me to talk on it, because even as a tiny company, when I only had 3 other people working with me, we started this practice of every 12 weeks, sitting down extremely formally. Now keep in mind, I'm never there, okay? I'm never there, so every 12 weeks, everybody at the time, all 3 of them, were getting an hour of my time one-on-one, and we had a very formal agenda. So 2 weeks prior to the review, they get a lot of paperwork to fill out. The 10 questions, the dangers, opportunities, and strengths, this R-factor question, if we're looking back in 12 weeks, what have had to happen for you to feel happy with your progress? Frustration breakthrough, positive focus. And I just can't emphasize the effect that this kind of practice will have on your company. I've never been a micromanager. I believe that you can be in charge without being in control. Say it again, I believe you can be in charge without being in control. And then I get kind of colored rings out on the face of a lot of folks that I say that to a lot of entrepreneurs. And then if you have A players, they merely need this kind of management that I'm talking about, keeping them focused on what makes them excited, anxious, confident, etc. So now I've told you I'm never around. I never wanted to cultivate a big daddy who will solve your problems culture. I know that my team is more competent than I am to solve the problems that inevitably will arise and do arise in our company. And I just do not want to be distracted from the areas where I have my value. And I'm not talking about deciding between the venti and the grinder. We'll get into that in a minute. To make sure that I'm able to communicate effectively with my team, that is to say and hear the important things at the right time, takes a level of organization which I must admit does not come naturally to me. I'm the least administratively inclined person probably that you've ever been. So I have an 8 a.m. daily huddle. I stop in periodically to speak with my team. I empty my email to 0 every single day and respond within 24 hours. And I hold these fairly intense quarterly listening sessions that I'm talking to you about. And I've had to adopt a system that allows me to provide the info that I need relevant to the individual when I need it. And that's basically keeping a list for each key man, which I add to all day, every day. Finance, operations, sales in particular are the guys that they earn special lists, they have special lists for me personally. And then I write thoughts to these lists as they arise, and I share those lists with them when I'm in front of them. Very, very simple. Now this is kind of unusual. I believe that my team is so good that they're highly desirable to other employers. And this was proven to me last month when just a driver was hired away by a firm that we serve, and they paid him 50% more than we were. Now recall is opening up in our markets, and I fully expect them to, my folks are experienced and they're desirable. So I want to minimize the grass is greener syndrome. But frankly, more than these defensive postures, I'd like my team to know how good they have it working with me. Now, I'm rarely around my office, but I want my team to know that my unique abilities will provide them things that no other employer will give them. I believe I owe my team 5 things: vision, growth, opportunity, authority, and appreciation. And so for the first time in 5 years, during the quarterly reviews last quarter, for each of these things, I just sat down with everybody, one-on-one now, just me and another person. I basically was telling myself, here's what a great boss does. It was kind of as awkward as it sounds, and they were like, oh shit, you don't do that, come on. But I was serious as a heart attack, because I don't want to get an awkward phone call in March, or worse, that they've gone to work for folks individually. I want to speak for a little bit about how the company realizes these ridiculously cool side benefits. So first thing is, if you're celebrating individual superpowers, then folks begin to internalize and appreciate each other. What do I mean? In daily huddles, we congratulate each other, attentiveness, client kudos, etc. It's very difficult to diss someone when everyone knows and constantly celebrates what they're great at. So for example, when this kid had left us to take a job with a client, he said, I just want to tell you that, anal guy X has really been riding me. That's what happens. The kid leaving was not so anal. And the anal A player, everybody knows, he rides anybody who doesn't meet his very high standard. I've been hiring fire people for years. I've heard that kind of exit interview complaining 1 foot out the door. By the way, get rid of him. He's got this problem. However, what was really noteworthy was that he spent most of his time talking about how indispensable this guy clearly is for our operation because of his strengths. Now, why? That just seems very unusual. You're dissing somebody for interpersonal problems you might have with him, but I realize that he is so vitally critical to the operation of FileVault that it makes it harder. It's not hard for me. All of us, nobody's perfect. Everybody's got strengths and weaknesses, and in an environment where you value the strengths, we make our decisions when the cons outweigh the pros. That's when we kind of make a change. But most importantly, pride is on the line. Folks want the company to excel. In our business, more than some, it's truly a team effort. So where some folks take the orders, some fulfill, some hold hands with customers. So a higher standard for team performance is really maintained. Folks simply don't tolerate low performance from the team as a whole. Anybody here who's played on a winning team knows what I'm talking about. So a measure that I live by is revenue per employee. And I try to outsource absolutely everything I possibly can to terrific vendors to add their unique ability, who exploit their unique ability. My CFO doesn't work for me. He was an analyst for a private equity company. So my modeling and financial management is, I'm punching way over a company my size's head. My assistants don't work. I've never met my assistants. I have 2 of them. Never met them. And they run my life. But if your team is comprised of folks who use their own gifts to add value constantly, and you've rationalized your process to where each person is contributing to the value chain that your client is depending on you to provide, then you're not needing to hire 2 people to do the job with one. You're not worrying about the job getting done. On the contrary, you're constantly thinking about how to do more with less. Do you really add value by that? Well, I'm not going to do it. The kind of thinking that I'm talking about, just the challenges that I'm having are, do we really need, I've debated actually putting my couriers into business for themselves, the guys who work for me. I understand the chain of custody, ramifications, and all that. But those are fun questions to have when you're trying to grind it out and get your metrics higher. And I'm trying to get $500,000 per employee. Just saying it now. We're not nearly there yet. That's really where I'm trying to shoot as a company. And I really believe it has big implications for kind of American competitiveness, which I'll kind of conclude with in a little while. But fewer higher paid, higher motivated, happy, value-added team members who take ownership in their expertise. That's the tape librarian who owns the tape library, the data entry manager who owns the indexing and the integrity of their database, the client happiness guard who owns the relationship. Now, they work smarter when there's mature A players around too, with discrete responsibilities. They also use their brains. They're able to think upstream and downstream from the processes. It's hard to emphasize how valuable that is. When the guy pulling the items has confidence that the database geek has his back and can help him in a pinch, how valuable is that to you? How valuable would it be to you to know that your team knows and cares far more than you about the job being done right than you yourself? Is it really your unique ability to turn a wrench at your workplace? Or are you free to work on your business rather than in it? Smart teams are free. And when a team is spending its time using its strengths, it's motivated to continue building muscle through exercise. So this exercise comes by throwing more interesting challenges at having the geek, for example, start to explain the value of the tracking software to other employees internally, such as salespeople, or even clients, if teaching something that he enjoys. You'll see excitement and desire, not complacency and boredom. Rolling out a web interface, for example, has been a thrill for the desk jockey who just hears client voices on the phone. But he loves what he does. He wants to show off our system to the whole world. The sales manager loves new service offerings and can't wait to make money off of it. The record center manager wants to brag about a new system he's developed for the tracking of items in temporary holding areas. These folks have their own domains that turn them on, literally every employee, and even the drivers. And they will innovate when they're free to do what they're gifted at. Now for the good part. You have this high-performing team. Great byproducts come from it, like higher bucks per head, smarter work products, pride in outcomes, etc. But there's also business improvements that make your company cook with gas by having this strengths focus. For example, we're blessed to be in an industry that depends a little bit on our physical proximity to our clients. However, I'm not smart enough to understand completely why we're not being threatened like every other purveyor of services who are being commoditized in technology in one way or the other. I feel like many of us are still competing on price, and to the extent that we are, there's very smart money out there who's betting our corporate lifespans will be measured in months, not years. Firms that are more proficient and efficient at providing our services, many of whose cost of capital and labor is nowhere near our own. And more on this in a little while. That's why I choose to spend about 90% of my time developing and testing intellectual property derived from our experiences selling these commodity services. And that's me doing what I like to do. So we want to be in a position where clients merely pay us for our guidance. I feel like, if I told some of you in here, so strongly do I feel about this, some of us have been in business long enough that people ought to be paying us for our time. When we sit down in the chair on the prospecting call, you have the guts to ask somebody for $300 just for that meeting. You don't want to work with us. You won't feel bad, you won't feel guilty, and I won't feel bad. That's when you value what you know, and you know the value you're creating for that client merely by asking them good questions. So last month we built $10,000 in consulting services, which was a personal milestone, because I've been working for about a year and a half to figure out a way to leverage this and leverage kind of our expertise. And so the best part is I had nothing to do with it. I didn't, except for kind of the initial kind of high-level sale to the elephant who bought the deal. This was about 40 hours at $180 or something in consulting services. Records management consulting. Huge win for us. I hope to bill $100 grand next year. And you'll be amazed at the clever money-making, money-saving, opportunity-exploiting ideas that a capability team can come up with. Most importantly, this is related to the kind of small is beautiful notion. You're in a position to run very lean if you have drivers who can't stand paperwork but who love technology, or CSRs who love teaching clients to query the database for themselves rather than doing it for them, or librarians who are smart enough to optimize their own workflow and engage enough in their domain to make it happen. In other words, you might have a smart librarian, but is he actually caring enough? Is he the guy who complains on the side or after hours, or does he actually have enough pride in what he's doing to actually do something about it? A team that's empowered enough to push back against ownership or management if they think the manager's idea is crazy because they know that they know better than the manager. You automatically get more efficiency this way. How good is your moat? How well protected is your castle? Have you lost clients to competitors? If so, have you thought about why? I'll start by saying that we've lost confidence is coming from a perceived competence in the act of using those crayons. They love it. They feel they're great at it. They don't mind sharing their enthusiasm for it. Well, this never changes. And when your team talks about your business to your clients, and your clients see that they know their stuff, it creates a lot of confidence on their part as well. Now, when somebody has something to say regarding an area that you're deeply interested in, do you tend to pay attention? So when a client has a comment about something, anything, good or bad, and they mention it to a CSR who loves her job, do you think she listens? And when the CSR is given a chance to speak in a daily huddle about client feedback, do you think she's related? And do you think that an ops manager who loves his job would congratulate a driver who garnered praise from a client that he heard on the huddle call? Conversely, when a client has a concern, do you think that the folks who love what they do will address it or ignore it? And I'm talking to somebody who's been a part of environments. Maybe we all have been part of environments where you get the client go, oh, thank you, we'll take it under advisement, and you're done. That's the alternative. Now, this is kind of a secret weapon, is to use this tool I described earlier on your clients. This is the main tool, the do unto others as we'd like to be done to ourselves tool. We think about our clients' anxieties, we think about what makes them excited, we think about their strengths and how they're going to exploit their own strengths to execute on their mission. So do this formally when you do your prospect. Do this formally when you sign your contracts. Do this formally when you have routine reviews with clients. And by the way, have routine reviews with clients. I think that came up in the earlier one. We do it every 90 days if they will have us. Typically it's every 6 months, but we request it every 90 days. Now this is my favorite part of the talk. How do you personally benefit from this approach? And the ways are too numerous to count. First, you will jettison all, and I mean all activities that do not make your heart sing. First, to go are the activities in which you're incompetent and cause you stress. That alone, getting rid of those stressful activities by delegating them to those who love them, will change your life immeasurably. Then you'll get rid of the activities in which you're merely competent, but to which you add no value whatsoever. And finally, and this is impossible to some, you'll ditch those activities at which you are excellent. In sales, in my example. Now, who does all these things? Well, folks who are excellent at it is the answer. Now, how do you think you feel by getting this stuff off your own plate? Most importantly, what do you do with your newfound time and energy? And the answer is you do what you were put on earth to do. You do only those activities which play to your strengths. When you do this, you create immense value for your clients, your team, and yourself. Because you're consumed with it. You're the college kid who's getting rewarded for studying what he loves. And how great is that? Now, I believe that we're entitled to wealth only to the extent that we create value for the world. I believe that we're entitled to wealth only to the extent that we create value for the world. Some people feel different. But therefore, I try to create value as much as possible. I can't spend my time or energy in areas where I'm not optimizing my value creation. I'd suggest that neither can you. Your time and your energy are finite, and don't you believe that you should do whatever it takes. Develop processes, delegate, invest, give up equity if that's what it takes to get the most out of your own time and energy. Now, if you buy this, then you'll find yourself in a virtual cycle, always attempting to put yourself into situations that exploit what you're great at. Always seeking out strengths in prospective employees or vendors that you can put to good use. I'm always thinking about airspace. The guy may not be articulate, but what's he great at? You know, we're always trying to tease that out of somebody. And you're always getting somebody to pay you for the strength that you offer. So how do you do this? I mentioned that you'll be developing processes. So many of these processes involve the development of positive habits or the end of destructive ones. Your self-analysis cannot get too granular if, as we say in the Mid-Atlantic, you want to get the oink out of the pig. Are you checking your email all day long, like I see folks here doing? Or are you, doing it, or worse, dealing with stuff in a suboptimal way, like responding in crappy type on your BlackBerry when you should be looking at your spouse suggests are anything you need to do, which is out there in your unique ability. There are a few activities that I love more than scrutinizing those bills at the end of the month, because I think to myself, would I have liked to have done these things myself? And usually I decide that I would have preferred slitting my wrists. Consider looking at your email once or twice a day. And when you do, emptying the entire inbox down to zero. In fact, think for a moment about all the inboxes that you have. And we can talk about that offline if you want. How do you think you'd feel if you got rid of all these energy-draining activities and filled up your life with things that you love? We'll skip that. You can go to the BareMetal or Prism or client conferences and engage. When you have a strengths mindset, you can decide if an activity is worth your while. Hassles will melt away, I promise you. I want to just leave you with, I came on none of this myself. I'm just kind of a student of life hacking, they call it, lifestyle design. And it seems to be working. And so I'll give you some resources that have meant a lot to me, and happy to talk to you about it offline. I go to a formal business coaching every 12 weeks for this program. And this is a lot of the phrases that I use and tests that I refer to are developed by Dan Sullivan, who's the founder of this program. About 3,000 entrepreneurs do it. And the Colby test is an assessment that we use, costs about $50. We have 3 assessments that everybody takes before they enter our company: Colby, the Now Discover Your Strengths thing, and something called Management by Strengths. But just do enough of them. My theory is do enough of them, and you'll get an idea of that person on the other side of the table. What the strategic coach has been for the florist, getting things done is for the trees. David Allen is a corporate guru. This book changed my life. This is what to do with that pile of crap on your desk. That's what this book is about. A very formal way of addressing it. And since I read it 3 years ago, I have nothing on my desk except for a stapler and a label maker. And I'm the least anal guy in that. This book was powerful. I read it 6 months ago, 4-hour work week. Very important book. The kid's 29, he runs a company with 200 people working for it, but 1 employee himself. Speaks 6 languages. He's a world champion tango dancer. That's what he loves to do. And so he spends his time doing that. And he's advocating exploiting web tools and the tools available to anybody today to build an enterprise and create value. This book I referred to a lot. It was a bestseller over the years. There's a 10-question questionnaire in the back of it. That is what we use with our team every quarter. And I strongly recommend it. So you have to ask yourself, how seriously do you take this kind of pie-in-the-sky discussion that I've had? Are you willing to, how far are you willing to go to kind of realize the benefits of the value-creating lifestyle? I'll close with this. I heard an investment banker talk a week or 2 ago. It so happened on the same exact subject, how as entrepreneurs we really have to be creating intellectual property, because anything tangible that we deal with is going the way we do it. Somebody else can end up doing it. And that was interesting hearing that from him, but what was more interesting is he had just had dinner with 2 chairmen of money center banks the night before, who asked him his opinion about U.S. competitiveness. And he gave it. He's a patriot and really positively talks to entrepreneurs all the time. These guys basically shut him down